Apple has done it again. The iPhone 17 series is here, and while the headlines scream about new cameras, brighter screens, and flashy colors, the real story isn't on stage at the keynote. The real story is how much Apple is secretly spending behind the scenes. Billions on research and development, hundreds of millions on marketing blitzes, and a carefully engineered global launch strategy that spans over 60 countries in just weeks. So today on Money Matrix, we're not going to gush over the features. Instead, we're going deeper into Apple's hidden budgets, secret labs, supply chain maneuvers, and why every iPhone you see in stores represents years of testing, billions of dollars, and risks Apple doesn't want you to think about. Stick around till the end, because this isn't just about tech. It's about business strategy, geopolitics, and how Apple stays the most valuable company on the planet. Let's begin with the basics. Why the iPhone matters. Even in 2025, with Apple pushing services, Vision Pro, Macs, and wearables, the iPhone remains Apple's cash cow. It's the backbone of revenue. Every iPhone sold pulls in money not just for hardware, but also for iCloud storage, Apple Care, the App Store, Apple Music, and more. Apple's filings confirm it. iPhones alone make up around half of the company's total revenue. That means every launch cycle is life or death for Apple's quarterly performance. This is why the company pours so much into research, design, and marketing, because if the iPhone fails, Apple stumbles. And Apple does not like stumbling. Now, let's talk research and development, the secret sauce behind every new iPhone. Apple spends an insane $33.45 billion per year on R&D as of mid-2025. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. To put it in perspective, Apple's yearly R&D budget alone is bigger than what Spotify, Twitter, and Snap are worth combined. But what does R&D really mean at Apple? It funds the chip engineers designing the A19 Pro processor that powers the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. It pays the camera scientists developing 48-megapixel sensors and periscope zoom lenses. It supports battery chemists, materials researchers, and thermal engineers who came up with a new vapor chamber cooling system. And here's something most people don't realize. Apple's R&D isn't just about tech. It includes human testing labs, ergonomic studies, accessibility design, and packaging science. Even the way your iPhone box opens with that smooth air cushion sound. Yep, Apple spent R&D money on that. Why does Apple spend so much? Because unlike Samsung or Xiaomi, Apple doesn't sell budget phones. They sell premium, and premium means perfection, or at least the illusion of it. That perfection costs billions. Now, let's move to the loudest part of Apple's playbook, marketing. Apple never says exactly how much it spends on iPhone advertising, but analysts and ad trackers have crunched the numbers. In 2023, Apple spent around $700 to $800 million just on display ads. That's banner ads, digital campaigns, and online placements. Ad TV spots, YouTube takeovers, billboards in Times Square, glossy magazine ads, retail demos, and those cinematic launch films. And we're easily talking hundreds of millions of dollars for every iPhone launch cycle. Think about that the next time you see an iPhone billboard on your way to work. It's not just there by chance. It's part of a carefully orchestrated global blitz designed to make you feel like the iPhone isn't just a phone. It's a lifestyle. And that's the real genius of Apple marketing. It's not about specs. Apple ads rarely scream 12 gigabytes RAM or 5,000 milliamp hours battery. They show emotion, lifestyle, belonging. They make you feel like if you don't have the new iPhone, you're behind. And yes, all of this costs money. A lot of money. But here's the kicker. Apple doesn't see it as an expense. They see it as an investment in brand dominance. Because when you can charge $1,200 for a phone and still have people lining up, the marketing budget pays for itself many times over. All right, so Apple builds the iPhone and markets it like a Hollywood blockbuster. But how do they launch it globally? This year, the iPhone 17 is launching in over 63 countries right from the start. The first wave covers the US, Canada, Europe, Japan, Singapore, Australia, and more. Then a second wave a week later expands to even more regions. Why does Apple stagger launches? Two reasons: supply chain control and hype management. First, Apple can't make 50 million iPhones in a single week. By phasing the rollout, they balance production and avoid shortages. Second, staggering keeps the hype alive. Imagine, 1 week, Americans are lining up for the iPhone 17. The next week, Europeans post unboxing videos. The next, India gets its stock. Apple turns every region into a fresh wave of free marketing. It's not just logistics, it's psychology. Now let's peek behind the curtain at the factories. For over a decade, almost every iPhone came out of China. But geopolitics changed that. Tariffs, rising costs, and US-China tensions pushed Apple to diversify. Enter India. By 2025, Apple is manufacturing a record number of iPhones in India through partners like Foxconn and Pegatron. Reuters reports that India could soon account for a quarter of all iPhone production. This is a massive shift. Why? Because India not only gives Apple cheaper labor and tariff benefits, it also helps Apple politically. Governments want jobs and investments, and Apple wants smoother access to fast-growing markets. But supply chain shifts are expensive. Building new factories, training workers, and replicating Apple's quality standards in a new country costs billions. Still, Apple knows it's safer to spread production than to rely too heavily on one country. Think of it this way: China was yesterday's iPhone factory. India is tomorrow's, and Apple is betting billions on that future. Back to R&D for a second. How exactly does Apple turn billions of dollars into a polished iPhone? The process is called the Apple New Product Process, or AMPP. It's a secretive, step-by-step system Apple uses for every major product. It covers concept sketches, prototypes, engineering builds, validation units, and mass production samples. Every step has strict review gates. If a prototype fails, back to the lab. If a material doesn't meet standards, scrap it. If a battery swells by even 1% in stress tests, redesign it. Apple's testing labs are brutal. iPhones are dropped thousands of times in machines that simulate years of abuse. They're baked in ovens, frozen in ice, dunked in water tanks, rattled on vibration rigs, and bent until they snap. Why? Because when you charge $1,200, failure is an option. Every cracked screen, every bent phone, every overheating battery, that's a PR disaster Apple cannot afford. So instead, they spend billions making sure problems never leave the lab. So if we add this all up, what's the true cost of an iPhone launch? R&D, $33 billion a year across products, with iPhone taking the lion's share. Marketing, hundreds of millions per launch cycle. Manufacturing shifts, billions invested in India and other regions. Launch logistics, global rollouts, regulatory certifications, carrier deals. This isn't just a phone launch. It's a military-level operation involving thousands of engineers, hundreds of factories, dozens of countries, and billions of dollars. And yet, every September, we treat it like just another product reveal. That's Apple's magic. They hide the complexity, so all you see is the shiny new phone. So the next time you see that Apple ad telling you to upgrade, remember, you're not just buying a phone. You're buying into the most expensive marketing and R&D machine in the world. This was Money Matrix. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to subscribe. We're constantly exposing the hidden side of tech, money, and power. Check the description for sources if you want to verify every number I mentioned. And let me know in the comments, do you think Apple spending is justified, or are we all just funding their trillion-dollar brand? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.